Morning there, folks. Hope you're all doing well. It's a lovely day again. This is crazy for British summertime. It's really coming through for us. The reason for today's video, there was a lad yesterday in the Property Investors Community Facebook group called Tom Kavanagh, and I would like to publicly applaud you, Tom, for courageously putting out a comment in the group saying that, as I understand it, you're 15, soon to be 16, you really want to learn more about property investment and you want to start kind of at a young age. And, good for you, right? Because I'm willing to have a chat with you and offer whatever support I can to you, and I'm sure others in this group will be willing to do that as well. And the fact that you're looking to invest in your education and your training from such an early age is a really good sign, because it's the best thing you can be doing, really, is to just educate yourself, because it de-risks so much of what you might go on to do later. But it's also been a catalyst for a broader topic of conversation, which is, what are the improvements that we can make to our British schooling educational system? And I've got a few views on this, and I'd love to hear all of yours. Perhaps there's people in this group who are still at school like Tom, or perhaps there's parents with children at school age who have a view on this too. So let me say kind of a few things that I think, and then we can throw it around a little bit in the group. So firstly, Tom, read Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. It will really give you a fresh perspective on financial literacy and highlight the things specifically around investment and money and financial education that you simply are not taught in school, or at least I certainly wasn't when I was at school in this country. And one of the things that really shines through after reading that book is that in our schooling system, there is a conventional wisdom which suggests that you should get a broad education in many different areas, and then go on to obtain a safe job, ideally a job for life, so that you will always have security for yourself and for your family. Now, I think that there are a few problems with that. Now, for a lot of people, it's the perfect path, and I'd like to applaud the education system for creating such a large audience of young people capable of adding value to companies and providing a livelihood for themselves. That's obviously a wonderful achievement. Not to mention, the British education system is a bit of a gold standard across the world, or at least it has been for many, many years. So we're obviously doing a lot right. But I have an issue with this, right? Because as we've seen in the last 6 months, lots of people have lost their job, right? And it's sad to say, but it's obviously not a security thing. You can be laid off, you can be made redundant. Just because you're getting your pay slip from 1 month to the next doesn't mean it's going to carry on forever. And also, what's almost more startling recently is that people with really, really expert, skilled jobs like airline pilots are finding themselves out of work in light of what's just happened. And that just goes to show more than ever that nothing in this life is guaranteed, right? And I think as an entrepreneur, you've just got to acknowledge that. You've got to accept that risk, and you've got to work your brain around, how do I mitigate risk? How do I do things to lessen the detrimental impact of something beyond my control happening which affects my life? If you've got one job with one company, you've got a single point of failure, because your employer can terminate that employment for a plethora of reasons. And all of a sudden, you've got a single point of failure, you've got a single source of income, and that source of income's gone, right? And then it's just a case of, well, I've got to find another job, presumably in the same industry, doing the same thing, because that's what you're trained to do, and you don't have the luxury necessarily of taking a year out to retrain to do something else, and maybe you wouldn't want to anyway. But if your whole industry's been affected, is it quite so simple as to go and get a job with another company doing the same thing? Because I could imagine if you were an airline pilot for British Airways and you've been made redundant, I'm not sure you can just pick up the phone to EasyJet now and go fly with them. I'm not a pilot, I don't know, I'm just talking common sense there. But the broader point is, how do you get away from a single point of failure? And this is all about financial literacy and understanding what's possible, right? So if you can create your own business, let's say as a property investor, right? Because that's the community that we're in here. So you decide to get going. Now, your time isn't limited in the same respect, right? You can buy multiple properties. You're not limited just having one. You can have an unlimited number, and you can introduce a management layer in between yourself and those properties so that actually you're getting passive income, key phrase, you're getting money coming in each month without having to work. You do have to maintain them, right? Passive income in property is a bit overused, I would say. There is work to it. It's active income, but it's far less active than if you've got a traditional job in the city and you're working 9 to 5 and beyond, obviously, long hours. It's not the same principle. So you can have as many properties as you want, which means you're not limited. But there's also a benefit from a tax standpoint, right? Because if you work for a traditional employer under a PAYE scheme, you are, and let's say you're earning £4,000 a month, how much of that are you giving away in tax? Do you actually take home 2,400 possibly? I'm not sure the numbers on this, but basically a high percentage of your earnings goes directly to the government, right? So you're working for your employer first and foremost, and you're giving them huge amounts of your time and energy and expertise that they're benefiting from far more than you are if they're a profitable company. Secondarily, you're paying the government, so you're working for your employer first, then you're working for the government because you've got no choice but for those deductions to be taken at source. So you're left with £2,400. Well, if you have a limited company that owns real estate, not only do you have the benefits we've mentioned about scalability and time efficiency, but you also are able to spend your money first, right? Because you're doing your company tax return at the end of each year, which you should do, and you should do legally, and you should do compliantly, and you should do everything by the book. I'm a strong advocate for doing things absolutely the right way, so get a good accountant. But it's where you can operate within the law to be tax efficient, you should be, right? And if you're bringing in, let's say, £4,000, let's use the same number, £4,000 a month in rental revenue or other revenue into your business, you receive £4,000. You don't receive £2,400. You receive the gross amount. Now, if you decide to spend the sum total of that money during the course of the month or the tax year to reinvest into buying machinery, refurbishment projects, bringing on team members, paying wages, all manner of things that are deemed, I'm not an accountant, but I think they're called allowable expenses, right? And your accountant can advise on what's allowable and what isn't. But effectively, you can spend that £4,000 improving and reinvesting your business such that by the end of the year, your profit is effectively zero and no tax is payable. So by operating in that respect, you can be far more tax efficient than if you go down the conventional route of just getting a job for life, as many people think is the safe option. And maybe that's a more valid approach for someone who wishes to be a doctor, or the airline pilot is a contrived example. It's quite extraordinary what's happened. But generally speaking, if you're studying hard to gain a specialist vocation, then there's a strong argument for that, because you kind of can't become a brain surgeon other than going down that path. And if that's your passion in life, then by all means go for it, because I think you do have to do the things that you're passionate about to really gain big success. And I suppose the other thing to just keep in mind nowadays is the cost of education at a higher level. If you're going to university, think carefully, particularly if you're going to do something that realistically you're never going to use in a work setting, because you're going to have a student loan that you're going to have to pay back. And if you're in the US or perhaps other countries around the world, the cost of that it can be crippling. It can stay with you for life. It's interest bearing over the course of a lifetime. There's definitely you're making a business decision at a very early stage in your life there that has monetary implications, and I would just advise you to think very carefully about it and seek advice from, you know, your teachers, your professors, your parents, and so on. But also have a chat to some business people who are doing the kinds of things that you hope to do later in your life, and get a balanced viewpoint, so as that you can make your decision with sound advice across the board. So look, anyway, I hope that's of interest to some of you guys. I really love to hear how you see this as well, particularly if you're, as I say, maybe a parent who's got children in school now or coming up to a big financial decision as to what they do with their future. But I would just maybe end by saying that financial literacy is not taught in school to the extent that I believe it should be. And, I would encourage perhaps parents to introduce their children to this, and maybe if you're in school like Tom, you are, read up on this stuff, because it will enhance your viewpoint of the world and maybe shape the way you think about things a little bit. So I hope that's been useful, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Have a lovely day. Bye bye.